Hey friends, today we are making Claire Saffitz's recipe for Classic Tiramisu. It is noticeably different from a previous tiramisu recipe that we tried on the channel. In the before times, I made Chris Morocco's recipe for an old school tiramisu. I'm going to call out a few key differences as we work our way through the recipe today. Without any further ado, let's get right into it. Here in my large glass bowl, I've got 4 egg yolks. To that, I'm going to add in my demerara sugar. I happen to have demerara sugar on hand. If you don't have this, you could use just regular granulated sugar, along with a 2-finger pinch of kosher salt. And I'm just gonna whisk that with my hand mixer for about 2 minutes to get that sugar dissolved. You can see the sugar is just kind of starting to dissolve. Here we've got our first key difference between the two recipes. In Claire's version, we are using a 1/4 cup of either Marsala wine or Kahlua. We're reducing that down to about 2 tablespoons, and that's going in the filling for the tiramisu. In Chris Morocco's version, we had only a tablespoon of dark rum, and that went into the soak with the coffee and the ladyfingers. It's a different volume of alcohol, a different type of alcohol, and a different placement of the alcohol within the recipe, so that undoubtedly will have an impact on the overall eating experience at the end. I used Kahlua solely because I am trying to save some money here. So I didn't want to buy a full-size bottle of Marsala wine. Kahlua airplane bottles were like $3.50. We'll get a little vanilla extract in here as well. In the same pan, about 1 inch of water. We're going to go over medium-high heat. And we'll just keep mixing this while we wait for the water to heat up and our egg mixture to heat up. This is going to take about 10 minutes. We want it to get really light and ribbony. And as I'm mixing, I'm just going to keep rotating the bowl just to ensure that there aren't any hot spots and that everything is getting evenly incorporated. And that is 6 minutes in. I'm just going to do a quick texture check. So we've got a little bit of ribboning. And from Claire's video, it looked like she achieved a little bit more body and a little bit thicker ribbons. So I'm going to let this go for just another minute or two. That is a full 10 minutes. And this may be as good as it's going to get. So we will take this off the heat. After 10 minutes over the water bath, this is obviously too hot to add in the whipped cream. So we're going to mix this at room temperature just for a couple minutes to help cool it down. So after 2 minutes of mixing at room temperature, this is what we've got. Now that this is cooled down, we can set it aside and work on the whipped cream. Here in a large bowl, I've got some fridge cold cream. Here's our second key difference. Claire's recipe is using a full 8-ounce container of mascarpone cheese, whereas Chris's old school tiramisu used only 4 ounces. So I'm guessing this will be a creamier, richer, more indulgent mouthfeel compared to Chris's version. And with our same mixers, we didn't even have to wash them. We're just gonna whip this to medium stiff peaks. Since the cheese is so thick, I'm just going to mix it on low for about 30 seconds to get it broken up, and then we'll crank it up to high. And that was 1.5 minutes, and you can see the texture here. Claire said it's better to undermix than overmix, so I'm stopping here at kind of like a medium peak. Into the whipped cream, we're going to scrape our slightly cooled egg mixture, and we're just going to fold this together with big sweeping strokes. And I think that looks pretty good. Claire said it's better to have a few streaks than to overmix this. And here's the third difference between these two tiramisu recipes. Claire is using 1 cup of espresso. I don't have an espresso maker, so I just used my drip coffee maker and cranked the intensity up to the maximum level, whereas Chris Morocco's recipe used 1.5 cups of brewed coffee. As I noted before, Chris's version had the rum in the coffee mixture as well. All the components are ready, so we're set to assemble the tiramisu. Before I start dipping anything, I'm going to do a quick dry fit just to see how I'm going to organize my ladyfingers in the pan. Ooh, that's nice. That's really nice. A little smushing, I think that's okay. We've got one that came out broken, and that's exactly the size we needed. Okay, cool, cool. The dry fitting looks good, so we can start dipping. These ladyfingers will suck up that liquid, so we don't want to let them be in there for too long. I am going to have a very strict 1 Mississippi for this entire batch of ladyfingers. Oh. Perfect, perfect fit. Now we're going to eyeball just about half this mixture on top. We'll use my small offset spatula just to zhuzh that into all the corners. Obviously, it doesn't have to be perfect. We're going to put more stuff on top of it. Now my conundrum is, do I orient the ladyfingers the same direction on layer 2, or do I alternate it? I think alternating it would give it more structural integrity, because you'll have some cross-hatching going on between the ladyfingers. I don't know if it would be as pretty, though, to have the ladyfingers running in different directions. This is really hard, because it's going to thicken while it sits, so it will have its kind of own ability to hold itself together. We don't need the ladyfingers to do the work for us. A slice of this with like the cross sections stacked on top of each other, I think that's a lot prettier. I'm going to put them in the same direction. I think it's going to be much prettier. Yes. Okay, we're going to keep it the same. Now I changed my mind. Here, I'm going to go to the other end And that way they're running in the same orientation, but we're staggering the seams. So I think that this is a good call. Okay, yes, I talked myself into it. That's what I'm doing. Then obviously to finish, just the remainder of the filling goes on top. This is very calming. It's been a long week. This is very nice. This is like one of those little sandboxes that you can rake. I like this. Diagonal zigzag is kind of whimsical. So we are all set here. This needs to hang out in the refrigerator overnight to solidify. However, I am going to put some cling film across the surface of this and actually press it down just so that it doesn't form any weird skin on the top. Our tiramisu has been chilling in the refrigerator overnight. It's been about 24 hours at this point, and so we are ready to finish it off, which brings us to the final difference between Claire's version and Chris Morocco's version. In Chris's version, we dusted the top of the tiramisu with cocoa powder. However, Claire has us grating chocolate across the surface. I am excited for that because I much prefer grated chocolate to dusted cocoa powder. However, surprisingly, I do not have a normal grater. I've got my microplane and I've got this box grater. So I'm just going to use the fine holes of my box grater today, and I think that should be all right. Wow, this is extremely messy. I do not know what is going on here. There's some sort of static cling situation, and this chocolate is flying everywhere. I am not getting an even distribution across the surface. And I think that is about all I have patience for right now. There is chocolate everywhere for no reason. It's so annoying. But at any rate, now we get to enjoy this. With this type of dessert, the first slice is always so ugly, but I'm going to do my best to get a clean one out for you. Not too shabby. Put a little more chaotic chocolate over the top here. This looks incredible. I cannot believe what a clean slice we got out of here. So letting that sit for 24 hours really helped us with that structural integrity, just like we wanted. The ladyfingers are not soggy. I can tell that just by looking at it. So I am excited to dig into this. Let's see how it tastes. Wow, so good. The ladyfingers still have a little bit of body to them. They're not all sogged down, which is the #1 problem with tiramisu, in my opinion. The texture of the filling is super nice. It is really light and creamy, but also rich and indulgent at the same time. So it's a nice balance there. I do like that the alcohol flavor is not overly boozy, which is what Claire said she was trying to avoid. At the same time, I would like more of a presence. That said, the Bon Appetit version was like rum in the face. In the face? So I don't know if I would necessarily go to that extreme. I greatly prefer the grated chocolate to the dusted cocoa powder any day of the week. I think we can acknowledge that cocoa powder on its own does not taste good, whereas shaved chocolate does taste good, so that's kind of like a no-brainer. The aesthetic of this cake versus the Bon Appetit old school tiramisu, I prefer this. I like the more classical, like dual layer, like broad surface area, as opposed to like a very tall slice that you kind of have to work your way through. This is what I want when I want tiramisu. Overall, the flavor between them, aside from the boozy component, it's very similar. I expected to notice more of like a creamy richness with this from the additional 4 ounces of mascarpone cheese. I'm not really picking up on it. It's been a while since I had that one, so maybe it's there. This is very indulgent, so perhaps. All that said, I really enjoyed this. I would 100% make it again. It was not fussy. It will feed a crowd. So 10 out of 10 would recommend. I really hope you enjoyed this week's video. If you did, please be sure to give me a big thumbs up and click subscribe. Thank you so much for watching. I'll see you next time.